Well, thank you so much for taking your time with us here at this very nice, pretty university and the wonderful discoveries that you've been making. My background is I was the first state licensed school of acupuncture in Florida in 1981. And I've been in this business a long time. I've been all over the world. I've been dual trained in Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, all of these various disciplines down through the years, and have had an online university since 1996 and have hundreds of students worldwide. I've gone basically all over the world quite a few times, giving lectures and meeting very interesting people like yourself as well, and have gained a lot of eclectic knowledge. And my particular interest in the last few years has been the lost tribes of Israel, because there is a theme that I've constructed for myself, that there are three major modes of medicine historically that man has developed. And that first mode I basically could just call shamanism, where the belief of disease causation was in spirits, and the treatment was by spiritual means, whether that was by exorcism or acupuncture or prayer or all of the various forms of hypnosis that shamans practice, etc., etc. Then on the scene worldwide, erupted almost simultaneously in history, was in the Far East. You had the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, which was dictated by a physician to the Yellow Emperor that became what was known as the Su Wen. And then parallel to that, just within a few hundred years, you had the School of Kos of Hippocrates, both advocating a form or forms of humoral medicine. In other words, disease causation by the elements, air, earth, fire, and water, affecting the human body. And that was the first demarcation where natural causes were recognized as causes of disease above and beyond true spirit invasion or spirit type perception of cause of disease. So from that, and then of course the Egyptian, which is buried deeper in history, which we know less about, also advocated humoral forms of medicine. In other words, differentiating diseases into categories of hot and cold, dry and moist, and prescribing herbs to counteract or counterbalance that superfluity of elemental cause. And from that, we now are getting a lot of information from other cultures worldwide, particularly Native American Indian and Amerindian, of which Taino, unfortunately, we don't have much to recover from written record, but we can imply from their forms of medicine that they too practice humoral, a humoral form of medicine. They separated herbs into hot and cold categories. We know even more from the Aztecs, because they clearly did that in their first Materia Medica, which was written by the Spanish explorer, the Badenius manuscript, which obviously allocates herbs as being of hot or cold nature or moist or dry. So we see all of this worldwide spontaneous evolution of elemental medicine, and I ascribe this migration of this, clearly historically, would be to look at the 10 tribes of Israel as being the most rational explanation for this occurring, and that's why I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the research I've been conducting on these stones has been to deal with what sorts of interactions took place that led to the presence of these sorts of inscriptions here in the island. Because this is not something that we've seen in the archaeological record associated to the indigenous peoples of Puerto Rico.
Yes.
So the priest that found these stones, his name was Father Nazario. He was made aware of this collection because a dying elder woman told him about information that ran through generations in her family, which was where the library of the Indians was located. So she gave him directions, and he went to look for the stones The collection of stones originally was 800 stones, and when the priest began looking at them, he began seeing inscriptions that for him were totally different from what we knew about, the ways that the indigenous people of Puerto Rico decorated the artifacts. So he began studying the stones, and he reached the conclusion that the writing in the stones was Hebrew Chaldaic writing, and he associated to the lost tribes of Israel.
Yes.
That was a common idea at the time. Many people were dealing with the idea that the members of the lost tribes somehow arrived into the Americas and either engaged with the people that were living here, or actually were the people that led to those indigenous people that we see here. So some people think that the indigenous people of the Americas are descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. Some other people think that those lost tribes of Israel engaged in contact with the indigenous peoples that were here.
And intermarried.
Intermarried and whatever. And so, Mormon faith and many different branches of thought have arrived to that conclusion. So there was a member, an archaeologist that was sent by the Bureau of American Ethnology, which is now the Smithsonian. His name was Jesse Walter Fuchs. And when he saw the stones, he said that the stones were forgeries and that the priest might have been involved in that somehow, or that he misinterpreted what the stones meant. And so basically there were these two schools of thought regarding this collection.
Yes.
One, that the stones were ancient, and the other one was that the stones were forgeries. So my involvement with this collection has been in trying to deal with what does the scientific analysis that are applied to them say about, first, the antiquity of the stones, and second, the meaning of the inscriptions that the stones have. That's basically what I've been doing. Trying to see if the stones are ancient or not, because some people thought actually that the priest either did it himself or commissioned somebody to basically make the markings that you see in the stones.
Yes.
So most of the research I've been doing thus far has dealt with trying to figure out what type of raw material the stones are made, what techniques were used to make the markings, and what raw materials were actually used to make those inscriptions. So my expertise in the archaeology of the Caribbean has been the study of the ways that the indigenous peoples produced stone objects. That's why I got interested in this study of these stones.
Yes.
So and eventually another line of information that I wanted to address was what sort of system was represented in the stones, and so all of those lines of information, of evidence, require very specific expertise. So when I deal with the raw material, even though I am an archaeologist and I know a little bit, I have been doing a lot of geological work, because the geologists are the ones that really have the expertise to tell me what type of rocks these are and from where the rock comes, if it's from outside the island or if it's from the island. And even though I do work with stones, there is an area of expertise that actually looks at is called use-ware analysis, looks at the inscriptions and tells me, the types of objects that were used to make the inscriptions, and the possible antiquity of the inscriptions. Because if you have a stone that you get from a river and it is eroded on the outside, if you do a marking on it, you will see that the inside of the marking has different attributes to the outside, because the outside is eroded while the inside isn't.
Right.
And so I wanted to gain expertise from people that didn't have any involvement in terms of whether they thought about whatever they thought about Columbus or any religious involvement, thinking about the lost tribes or whatever. And eventually, I brought in somebody that looked at the inscriptions, and I selected this epigrapher, who are the people that study ancient inscriptions. I wanted to work with this epigrapher because he's an expert detecting forgeries of ancient writing, and also because he's an expert. He knows how to read ancient Hebrew, he knows how to read Phoenician, he knows how to read many of the languages that could be either attributed directly or indirectly to people that might be related to lost tribes of Israel, for instance.
Right.
So where I am at present is first, I based on the for instance on the types of erosion that we see on the stones, etc. I knew that the stones were, so at least a vast majority of them were ancient, but the analysis that have been made have shown, for instance, that the type of rock is called serpentinite, and that even though the science available at present doesn't allow me to pinpoint an exact source of this raw material, based on the fact that the stones were very likely found near the only area where this type of rock is present in Puerto Rico, and also the presence of different types of crystals, etc., it's very likely that the stones were made of local materials, so that the stones were made here.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, that the markings, most of the inside of the markings, is not was not made with iron tool, metal tools, but actually they were made with stone tools. So stone tools similar to the ones that the indigenous people of Puerto Rico used. So it doesn't seem like, because forgers usually use modern tools to produce, try to represent, these ancient objects, and you can see if that within the markings. So it seems like the techniques that were involved in this were also from ancient times. So based on that, and also the fact that I've been able to get there's some stone tools that are burnt. So when they are burnt, there is soot inserted in the area where they are burnt, and I've been able to scrape some of that soot, and I have been able to apply radiocarbon dating to that soot, and the radiocarbon dating has resulted in dates that go from between 950 BC to 980. So it is a wide range of dates, but they are at least half a millennium prior to when Columbus arrived here. So
Yes.
actually, it again underlines that these stones were very likely produced here in ancient times.
Yeah.
And so then, so for me, the question of whether these are recent or ancient is for me at least, is clear that most of the stones are ancient.
Yes.
So the other big question is, what type of markings do we have? What contacts were taken, or if this was a local development independently of contacts with other cultures, etc. So what the epigrapher concluded, and his name is Chris Ralston from George Washington University. He looked at the stones. He spent a week with me here in Puerto Rico, looking at the collection in detail. And he said first that the inscriptions that you see in the stones are ancient, that the inscriptions seem to denote a form of annotation system, but that the type of writing that is presented here, he thinks is not Hebrew, is not Phoenician. He thinks it's an ancient type of writing that developed locally because of the indigenous people engaged in contact with other people that had an established writing system. that the writing system these stones have is unknown at present. Which culture or cultures engaged with the indigenous people in the island, we still don't know. That's a question we still need to figure out. But he was very straight in his argument that the stones were not associated, that he, based on his expertise, he could not say that the stones were, presented Hebrew writing. He said that there are some symbols, as you can see here, that seem similar to Hebrew signs,
Yes.
but he wasn't, based on the structure of the writing that he sees here, he thinks this is completely different. So we are now trying to figure out which culture or cultures were the ones that might have engaged with the indigenous peoples from the island that led to the development of this system of annotation. So it is like, based on the dates that we have, this seems to be like the oldest system, or one of the oldest, together with the Olmec, systems of annotations in the Americas. And so it again shows that the indigenous people of the island and in the Caribbean in general were much more advanced, as my colleague Roberto Pérez says, scientifically, than what we have traditionally attributed to them. That there was a deeper knowledge about the space that they were inhabiting, about the celestial space, about nature, and perhaps other sorts of knowledge that we don't have any clue about them, and so for me, like, when you look at this system is really complex because it has the markings, but then it has these lines in angles, which might have something to do with mathematical coding or something. We are at this point, and I'm sorry to not be more conclusive in my perspective, but at this point, I am just trying to figure out, having at least from myself and my own perspective, I am okay now with saying, as an archaeologist, that I think that many of these stones are ancient, that they are prior to Columbus. I am okay with that, and I go to the end. But I am still working on trying to establish what sort of system is represented, what type of information was being codified
Yes.
in these artifacts. This is not decoration. Like the epigrapher said a couple of things that were really important. He says that these are register lines.
Yes.
So this is what provided orientation to the signs and possibly meaning to the signs.
Yes.
So there was information being coded on this.
Yeah.
And so, but what type of information? Probably, like, I recognize my intellectual limitations, and that's why I try to gain expertise from people that could provide me, a more robust basis to interpret this.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, this semester, I am going to do. We produced a catalog. I don't know if you have it, but I can send it to you by email. Of all the photographs of the stones that are in Puerto Rico, in Europe, and in the United States, because these collections of stones are in Harvard, in the Smithsonian. They are in the Museum du Quai Branly in Paris, and very likely in other institutions that we are not aware of thus far. Because of the 800 stones, we only have located around 350. And basically, I am certain that many of the stones that we have located are the less complex ones. I think that the best stones are actually in those private collections. I am dealing with what was left, you see. And so the interesting thing about the stones is that when you see them from the get-go, you don't see much about them. You say, oh, what's the fuss with these stones? But then when you begin looking at them, you begin soon looking at the eyes, the mouth, and many of them have like this feature here that looks like some sort of turban or something in the head,
Yes.
which for us is really interesting because this is not, you can see it here more clearly,
Yes.
you see? This is not something that we associated to the dressing codes of the indigenous people from here as far as we know.
Right.
This is, so for me this is important. Perhaps will provide us a basis to pinpoint perhaps the likely people that arrived here and establish contact with the indigenous people from the island,
Yes.
you know? Because as far as we know, the earliest date that we have of this is around 900, 950 BC, but we had people living in Puerto Rico 3,500 years before Christ, or even 4,000 years, you know, so
Yeah.
so there was people here when this started
There
happening.
was an introduction of a new
Exactly.
symbolic form of communication.
Exactly. And so we are just trying to figure out, and when you see like the variability that you see in the stones, for instance, you see this face, right?
Yeah.
And you compare it to this, you see that these are like two different hands involved in making this. So for me, one of the interesting things is that there was information being passed from person to person. This was not only one person that sat and did all the stones.
Yeah.
There was information that was being passed. So it's not like I am going to show you how to make a human figurine, but it's also that I'm going to show you how to locate these symbols in the artifacts and perhaps what meaning could that entail in making so.
Yes.
So this is, you know, and a stone like this, when you look at it, you see like this face is really polished, you know, nicely, but then you see this face, and this face is really eroded. So it actually said that the stone was put here like that, and then the water started eroding it. And you know how many years that takes for a stone? This is hundreds of years. Not only that, but this stone broke, and you see the inside of the stone is really eroded, right?
Yeah.
So this is a recent fracture. This is an ancient fracture. You see, so this actually, for me, is clear evidence that this was fractured a long time ago, and then after it was fractured, it was eroded.
Yeah.
So all of these are indicators of the antiquity, and also, you know, but interestingly, despite the fact that they are different, they share some features. For instance, this headdress.
Yes.
So maybe this had to do with a representation of these beings, these people that they saw, you know, and that, you know, that maybe engage with them, because, you know, like I've always tried to say that it's not that these people in here were just receivers of information. There was perhaps an information exchange, because the people that were here also had their own information. So I think that whatever is being represented here, some information went back also, you know. So many of these people, I know that they were, you know, exchanging data, you know, exchanging knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, most of the interactions that we have as human beings don't leave an archaeological mark.
Right.
So you leave from this office right now, and there will be no archaeological signature of your presence here.
That's right.
You see? So the fact that we have this is really significant, because, you know, how much more information might have been exchanged that we don't know about, you know.
Exactly.
So we were fortunate that this is made in stone, because we're in the tropics.
Otherwise it wouldn't
So
be here.
yeah, so all the stuff that was done in wood, that very likely serve as another mechanism to make these markings, or maybe cotton, you know, maybe some painted textiles or whatever. All of that is lost, you know. So we're really fortunate to still have this, you know, and it allows us to at least, you know, get a glimpse of the potential knowledge that was at least being moved around in Puerto Rico in ancient times.
And island to island.
Yeah, and island to island, because, you know, maybe this hasn't been found in the islands, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this information was not moved, you know, because maybe it was exchanged, but it didn't have an archaeological signature that we can find now, you know.
Exactly. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and then there are some stones you see here. This stone, it's just that these stones, when you look at them at the first, well, it's not a big deal. But then when you look at the stone, you put it like this. You see the lines.
Yes, I do.
This is like a sort of grid system.
Almost navigational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the sort of information I'm talking about.
Almost like the Nazca lines and
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
Peru.
exactly. I guess that there was a deeper level of information that, that was being moved around, and I guess that there was people thinking about this stuff in many different cultures, moving long distances, moving long distances to engage in this.
It could be constellational, it could
Yeah.
be geographic.
Exactly. That's what I think. Some people see this, you're talking about that with a bunch of lines. Well, man,
No, it
This
could
is
be
the-
constellational.
yeah, there was something happening here that led to the production of these lines, But this stone is not from this collection. This stone was archaeologically found here at the university. We did an excavation, and this stone was
And it got
actually
dug
found
up.
here. It got dug up. We know the exact level. We know the radiocarbon date. This is indigenous, and some of these stones have, like, not only do they have like the system of the markings, but also they have these sorts of line systems.
Yeah,
So
that seems to be a common theme.
yeah, and so that for me is one of the most interesting aspects of this collection. Trying to see, you see,
Yeah, there are.
See
It's
here?
almost on all of them.
yeah, and finding it in the archaeological record also provides me a good basis to tie it up with this. You see, so we have, even though I haven't found a specific artifact as this in the archaeological record, features of the artifacts I've already seen in the archaeological record, and so that's why I'm certain that although I see some stones, this one was recent, and when you compare, for instance, the lines in these stones and the lines in this stone, you can see why.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
This stone was recent. So what I have in this collection is actually, like, some of the stones might have been made during the time of the priest, but most of the stones were made in ancient times. And there was a French explorer, Alphonse Pinard, that when he met with the priest, he saw it. He said, well, most of the first ones that the father found were ancient, but then the people in the town, when they saw that the priest was so interested in the collection, they began making them, and so that the priest provided them a modest regalia,
Yeah.
and so this is a difficult archaeological scenario because we have, like, both. But for me, like you look at this stone, this is ancient but made, in different hands than this.
Definitely.
You see?
It's quite visible.
So this was knowledge transmission. You see, this for me is the most important aspect of this collection.
Definitely.
And in the past, this was happening. I am not closed to the potential of people coming in from the Mediterranean, but it's a possibility. I am not from people from Africa, from people from South America, Central America, whatever,
Even China.
or all of China, or all of those places.
Yeah.
Or all of those places, because I know that there, in ancient times, there was peregrinations, there was people, doing this. We have seen, we have a jaguar tooth in Puerto Rico, where nowhere in the Caribbean do we have jaguars. You see,
And you found one here.
yeah, in the archaeological record there is jaguar here in Puerto Rico. We have turquoise, which the nearest sources are in the southwest in the U.S., in Mexico, So we have jade, which is not local in Puerto Rico, and it's here. So we know that these people were trading. People were navigating, so, they were reading the stars.
Yeah.
So this is just another chapter in that sequence, of knowledge and stuff that was already
Hay nuevas
present.
piedras ahí, ¿verdad?
Huh?
Hay nuevas piezas ahí. Pues son de Guayanilla.
No, estas son, no, this is a semi.
Oh, okay.
It's a three-pointed semi. You see the face? But this is traditional what you find in Puerto Rico. You see, but this one, when you look at it, it's burnt on the bottom. So it seems that there was some sort of activity.
Ritual.
Yeah, ritual where they put the semi over fire. Not live fire, but charcoal. Just charcoal. They put it there, and I can't imagine what, you know. You have here even what is called pot leading, which is something that happens to the stone when it gets hot, yeah.
Y esa otra pieza, de la que sigue.
Esto, this is a fragment of what is called stone belt.
Stone belt.
Oh man, you would love this. You know what I would do if I were you guys? There is an exhibition right now at the University of Puerto Rico in Rio Piedras at the museum about the religious objects of the indigenous peoples of Puerto Rico. It would be amazing if you could go and see
Yes,
it.
it would.
Because it would allow you to see complete objects of this, and then you'll see what was happening here. Because this is a soft rock, but what they were doing with hard stone, oh man, this just, I work with stone and I go to the river. I actually tell my students, like, okay, you go to the river, like in Puerto Rico, we have something that's called spherolites, which are like really completely round stones.
Mm-hmm.
Completely round, like completely round.
I've seen them.
And I tell them, you go to the river and try to make one, even a small one, you know, and I'll give you a bonus of 50 points in the next exam. They start and they cannot do it. It's just too difficult. And it's just a ball. You can, when you see those other stuff that you'll see there, you're going to say, wow, man, yeah, like this is something.
Out of this world.
Yeah. And not only here, you know, many of the indigenous cultures in the Americas are already managing really complex information, you know. So, but I think that all of that complex information not only was a result of they were independently inventing it, but also that was the end result of all the interactions that were taking place between all these people, you know, because knowledge is, you know, is constructive and
contagious.
It begins building, and you provide an explanation, and you say, you can record that this way, and then, okay, so we'll do it, and that's how, you know, writing developed, you know.
Yeah.
I made el catálogo de las piedras del Padre Nazario. Tuve la oportunidad de fotografiar todas las piezas y hacer el arte gráfico, diseñarlo y editarlo junto a Reniel. Pero particularmente también me gusta el tema de investigación y soy escritor de un libro. Aunque debo aclarar que no lo hago desde un punto de vista académico, aunque uso bastante la metodología académica, pero mi acercamiento al estudio de arte rupestre en el Caribe y de otras formas iconológicas lo hago desde el punto de vista de pensarme que soy indígena, pensar que soy indígena y tratar de recobrar lo que pueda sobre mis ancestros y ancestras. Entonces, pues me parece genial este hallazgo. Y me ha sido placentero estar cerca de Reniel y poder ver la data fluyendo y estar cerca de esa data que va entrando y vamos entendiendo qué significa una parte, ¿verdad?, de esta colección. Porque yo he estado estudiando el arte de todo el planeta.
Sí.
Y mi opinión es que existe un lenguaje antiguo, milenario, que codifica, que el receptáculo de ese lenguaje son valores científicos, información empírico-analítica. Entonces, por ejemplo, las posturas de los personajes están asociadas a constelaciones, en lo que yo he podido estudiar. En el caso del Caribe se pueden observar que en algunas de estas piezas se pueden observar también, que es lo que me parece interesante, ¿verdad? No es que estas piezas reflejen todos los parámetros que se están utilizando en el arte que encontramos regularmente, pero hay cosas semejantes, y entonces, pero también son semejantes a las ocurrencias del arte en otras partes del planeta. Y le doy un ejemplo. Los personajes suelen tener las manos de esta forma. Eso es bien interesante. O tienen las piernas así, con las rodillas hacia arriba, formando un ángulo agudo. Y, el concepto es que están sedentes, están sentadas. Pero las manos suelen ir de la barriga, las manos suelen ir de los muslos, se mueven hacia las caderas, van a la barriga, se tocan el pecho, se tocan la quijada, van a las orejas y después a la nuca. Eso es el patrón. Hay algunas variantes, como cuando se tocan el pecho, algunos personajes tienen esta postura de esta forma, las manos de esta forma. Pero es curioso que en algunas culturas el dedo pulgar se mueve fuera, de una forma bien extraña. Se ve en los Andes centrales, en el arte mochica, se ve en la cultura wari, no recuerdo bien si llega hasta los incas, pero en esas zonas de los Andes centrales suele pasar eso, se ven los olmecas, donde se intercambian los pulgares. Sucede también lo mismo, cuando uno naturalmente pone las manos hacia adentro, los pulgares deben estar hacia arriba. Y entonces observas el arte y los pulgares están hacia abajo, pero las manos están de esta forma. Y todo eso son consideraciones que yo hago, y entonces voy comparándolas y veo que se repiten continuamente, pero lo interesante de las posturas es que ya he identificado constelaciones en esas posturas también. Donde se suelen observar las constelaciones es en los laterales, generalmente, en los laterales. Estas posturas que se ven en San Agustín, por ejemplo, en Colombia, los jaguares los suelen poner en esta posición, pero uno se mueve hacia el otro lado del mundo y ponen a los leones en esa posición, y hay culturas que ponen a los pumas en esa posición. Curiosamente, en el lateral de esas posturas está la constelación de Leo, que es un gato gigante. Y entonces eso me permite concluir que el manejo de la información en esa época no es el que nosotros pensamos. Nosotros tenemos como unos prejuicios de la gente del pasado. Pensamos que la gente del pasado tenían un marco mental bien estrecho y que no podían producir la información empírico-analítica, o que no podían hacer reflexión, que no podían codificar ciencia, y eso es un gran error nuestro. Y eso no permite que la información fluya. Es lo que ha hecho que culturas expansionistas como el Imperio Español llegara al Caribe y creyera que toda la gente que habitaba el Caribe era inferior porque su modo cultural era distinto. Hoy sabemos...
Muy buen punto.
Hoy sabemos, en esa frontera ecológica de que estamos destruyendo el planeta, sabemos que la civilización parece tener fecha de caducidad. La civilización como modo de producción. No la humanidad, no el ser humano, sino la idea de organizarnos en especialidades y extraer de la naturaleza todo lo que podamos, desertificándola, convirtiéndola en un desierto. Parece que todo ese programa humano es cuestionable, no es realmente productivo, y necesitamos otra cosa, y los indígenas parece ser la respuesta. De hecho, el Papa, ¿cómo que se llama el Papa católico?
Francisco.
Francisco lo mencionó hace poco.
Y Noam Chomsky.
Y Noam Chomsky, lingüista. Ambos dijeron que los indígenas tenían la respuesta.
Wow,
Sí.
excelente.
O sea, que ya hay un reconocimiento. Y entonces, lo interesante es que eso no tiene que quebrar la idea de una relación con Dios. Al contrario, que muchas veces se piensa que elegir un modo de producción diferente a la civilización, no sé, como si no fuera alejar de Dios, pero la realidad es que creamos o no creamos en que esta es la creación, o que vino por accidente, la naturaleza tenemos que cuidarla. Por eso es que yo me acerco al indígena, porque entiendo que me permite tener esa relación yo creo que no existe ser humano que tenga todas las respuestas, pero un acercamiento a la naturaleza creo que es lo más correcto, es lo más cercano a Dios que tenemos. El cielo no es el que nos acerca a Dios, es la propia Madre Tierra la que nos acerca a Dios. ¿Qué más le puedo decir? ya salté de un tema al otro.
Ok, bueno, vamos a terminar con cualquier otra cosa que quiera decir antes de terminar
Pues,
la entrevista.
estamos prontos para seguir las investigaciones sobre las piedras. Queda mucho por estudiarse. Yo espero que si esto le llega a gente que pueda entender, que puedan aportar punto de vista monetario. Yo estoy seguro que a Reniel le hace falta dinero, ¿verdad que sí? No sé cómo está él, pero las investigaciones científicas,
Es algo que, ¿verdad? Nunca está
en la investigación científica siempre hace falta
Pues
dinero.
cualquier persona que quiera...
Sí, que quiera aportar. Yo estoy haciendo aquí un anuncio que no me pidieron.
¿Cómo se puede...? La información de contacto.
Genial, ¿qué podríamos darle información?
Mi email pueden darle reniel.rodríguez
Ujú.
@upr.edu. Cualquiera me puede contactar ahí si tiene algún interés en participar o colaborar de alguna manera en la investigación.
Okay.
Eso incluye también gente, porque hay piezas perdidas, hay como 450 piezas perdidas.
Por lo menos.
Y vamos a hacer una invitación para la gente que puedan ir al Museo de la UPR para ver esa exhibición. ¿Hasta cuándo va a estar esa exhibición y cuál es el horario del museo?
La exhibición de la UPR entiendo yo que va a estar por aproximadamente 3 semanas más, hasta finales de febrero, tal vez la primera semana de marzo.
Excelente.
Ellos abren durante el día como entre 8:30 y 4. Y es de acceso libre, no hay que pagar nada por ver esa colección.
Muchas gracias por esa información.
Well, on behalf of the school and the order, of course, we want to thank these two lovely gentlemen for presenting all of this very vital information. It's been a nice cultural exchange, and I have 2 of my books out in the car I would like to give you.
Oh, please.
I wrote a book on the history of Nevis.
Oh,
This is where I live. I'm not American.
okay.
You know, I look like I'm American.
You live in Nevis. Okay.
I've been in Nevis 30 years. I'm a citizen there.
Oh, okay,
And I
okay.
have a large medical practice.
Okay.
But
Oh, you're Caribbean then.
I'm a Caribbean. Yeah. And I wrote a book on Nevis, and that prompted me to then write a book on the history of St. Kitts.
Oh,
A contemporary history, because most of the textbooks that have been written, which are very sparse about the island, never went into the early history of the Spanish, the British, the French, and the Dutch when they first settled those islands. The
okay.
history books there basically start with the British cultivation of sugar and those things, but there's at least 100 to 150 years before where they didn't discuss anything about the pirates, the early settlements of the original governments that went there, their battles with the Spanish for taking control of the island. They ignore all that as a cultural blackout, I call it. And so I prompted to do those 2 early histories, including the Arawaks who lived there, because at the Four Seasons golf course on Nevis, they excavated pottery and they found specimens that were both Arawak and Caribbean Indians.
Well, yeah, Nevis and St. Kitts, they both have
Very old
a
history.
very old history, yeah. When the
Yeah.
indigenous people arrived, that's when history started.
And I made you might find this interesting, okay, because I'm a Nevisian. And I have little discussions with my patients from time to time, because only people that have lived on Nevis a long time can actually tell immediately whether someone is from St. Kitts. Even though we're one federation and one nation, there is a marked difference in personality between a Nevisian and a Kittitian. And Kittitians will argue with you that that can't be, that's not true. So many of our families were born in Nevis, and us Nevisians say, no, you just don't understand. There is a personality difference. So the implication of that is there is a certain level of peace that is on the island of Nevis that it's not quite palpable, but the people themselves are an extremely peaceful natured people. Compared to Kittitians, although they're not unpeaceful, they're more aggressive. in terms of business and personality and things like that. So the interesting thing I found was that Columbus, I believe, did land on Nevis on his way here to Puerto Rico. Okay, he did stop there for 3 days to water his people at a very famous spring called Wally, which in Caribbean language means beautiful waters. Admiral Nelson also stopped there to water his troops later on in history. So there's this natural spring coming down from the island that's still there to this day. It's called Nelson Springs today. But Columbus landed near there, and he, like Sir Walter Raleigh, when they landed, they found no people on the island. It was completely abandoned. And I think because of the fact that that was one of the few islands where it wasn't invaded and it wasn't taken over. Like this island, of course, you have a long history of Spanish invasion. Nevis never had that. It was actually settled by Anthony Hilton, who was British, that first started the first habitation there. It was attacked by Caribbean Indians. Anthony Hilton sailed to Tortuga and established what I called the first offshore corporation. He wrote letters of marque for pirating. He was like one of the original pirates of the Caribbean, even though he was appointed governor of the island. Anthony Hilton became a pirate on Tortuga. It's an interesting story, you know.
Wow.
And I uncovered all of this history about Nevis, and Nevis is,
Wow.
I think since Nevis, the land was just claimed, it was abandoned by the Indians completely for hundreds of years. There's no trace of them. And this pottery concludes that in fact that's true, that Nevis was uninhabited for hundreds of years before Columbus stepped foot, and then after that the British. So
Okay.
that's my conclusion on my book.
So in St. Kitts you have like the sugar factory pier site. Do you know that?
Yes,
The sugar factory pier site is actually a really ancient site.
it was one of the first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
it was built by Admiral Pointsy, who was the fourth governor of the island. But believe it or not, at the time of his appointment, the island was owned by the Order of St. John, the Knights of Malta.
Okay.
Owned the island 16 years.
Yeah, I know about that story.
Yes, and that's in my book, how that all transpires.
Yeah.
But he made the first sugar mill, and he was an agronomist. He was very active in cultivation of land, and he built the first sugar mill, which established later for Nevis the wealth of Nevis by the late 1600s was superior to all 13 colonies of the United States. It had more income producing sugar and slavery on that island, which is a strange history, but that's really true. It had more economic wealth than any of the islands of the Caribbean
Wow.
at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Muchas gracias.
Sí,